Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. We are here with a new lecture which is related to nonverbal communication. We are going to discuss about proxemics and paralanguage in this lecture. So in the previously we have discussed already about the verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And in the same lecture, we have gone through the kinesics, which is body language, and oculesics, which is eye contact, in detail. Now let's move on with a few more kinds of nonverbal communication, and these two were our prime focus of today. So let's first talk about proxemics. Proxemics is actually, we can say, the space language. The space language means non-verbal language communication wherever we are not using the language. Sometimes our social distances, the spaces in which we are, they communicate themselves that how to behave in these kind of situations. So proxemics is basically the study of the human use of space. How do they use the space and how do space conveys the meaning? So the human use of space and effects that population density has on behavior, communication, and social interaction. Proxemics is one among the subcategories in the study of nonverbal communication like haptics, kinesics, Vocalics, and chronemics. So today we also discuss vocalics, but first let's have a discussion about proxemics. So according to the American standards, proxemics is a space language. Space language doesn't mean the language which is spoken in the space. So first of all, before starting, let me clarify this. Proxemics doesn't mean the language which is spoken in the space, but proxemics is the language, space language, that while we are interacting in a society, our distances shows and our spaces between one another, our social distance speaks itself, and that is called proxemics. So there are four categories which are intimate, and its social distance is 0 to 2 feet. Personal language, personal space, 2 to 4 feet. Social space or social distance, 4 to 12 feet. And public space or public distance is more than 12 feet. So here let's talk about the intimate space. Intimate space is like when we are very close to our friend. Intimacy is like very close friendship. So being very close to someone, we are very close to our friend, and we can speak, we can say something, we can whisper in their ears. So all these things like this. So it is used for very confidential communication. When we have very confidential communication, it is easily done in the intimate space. This zone is 0 to 2 feet, and we can see here in the figure like hugging, like holding hands, standing side by side, and being very close is intimacy. So if two people are in intimate space and someone who is not in intimate zone will experience a discomfort. So in this intimate space, it is always a message or a non-verbal cue for the strangers. Like we are very close sitting with our friends, with our intimate friends, if anyone who comes from outside, we don't feel comfortable, and he will never as well. So this is about intimate space. So social space and social distance is from 2 to 4 feet. This is with our close friends. Like I've told you, when we are taking our family outside, we are with our family, or we are with our close friends. Although it is here we have more space than intimate, but even here we can touch the hands uh, and our personal distance range I have already told you. And if any stranger enters in personal zone, just like intimate space, intimate zone, he will feel uncomfortable and you will feel uncomfortable as well in such close proximity. So personal space is a bit more wider than intimate, but it is also like intimate somehow. So this here why we are studying this is in non-verbal, because these spaces themselves are communicating how to behave. Then there is the third one. This is social distance, is usually used in business transaction, business meetings. Here our we are a bit more distance, that is 4 to 12 meter. Generally in the social distance, if any strangers comes, it's not as we can say uncomfortable as it was in personal and intimate space. So socially we can discuss with many other people, so there are many social spaces, social places, and in any social place we behave accordingly. And then there are the norm of social spaces. I mean, for example, in personal or in intimate space, we are also free to speak whatever. We can do every kind of discussion, we can speak in every way. But whenever we are in social space, in a social distance, we have to curtail our we have to look for our words, we have to look for our language, we have to look for our communication, that how we are communicating. We are not as free as we are in personal or intimate space. So these are the norms of social space and we have to follow it accordingly. Then there is public space. This is more than 12 feet. So in this space, in public distance, we try to keep our secrets. When we are sitting on the benches, we are using our mobile phone. We don't want that anyone else may see our mobile phone. In public spaces, we have a public distance. We can see in the public parks, in the public areas, in all these places. It is an unbidden message for us that how to behave and keep our distances. For example, if we go for the photocopy and the photocopy shop, we need to keep a public distance. We are photocopying, it is usually happening in Pakistan. We are getting photocopy or something and everyone is just trying to look from behind what he is getting copied and all these things, and we are not taking care of public distance and public space. And sometimes this problem may result in different kind of quarrels and fights on the streets, and this is quite usual. Why? Because we are violating this non-verbal communication of public distance. So this was about proxemics, which is space language, how distance communicates. Now let's move on to the second part of our lecture today, and that is about paralanguage, which is also called vocalics. So now there's no difference between paralanguage and vocalics, but somehow we can talk about context and our speech quality. Speech quality particularly lead towards vocalics, and context, all that comes in paralanguage. So what is paralanguage basically? Paralanguage, there are the two parts of this word, para and language. So here we can say, now para means same, whereas we know language means language. So paralanguage means same language. So how to explain it now? Mean, when we are using the same language mean we are utilizing the same words, but they are conveying different meanings and different sense. We are usually use this paralanguage for direct messages. So in other words, we can say the token value, which is the real meaning and sense of a sentence, is not its words, but other things like context and vocalics. So we will explain this shortly, but in earlier lectures we have a little bit discussion about it. When in non-verbal communication and verbal communication, I was talking about that in verbal communication we use the language, we use the words, but when whatever words we are using, if the token value of these words mean the meaning of these words is not as these words are, this is not their literal meaning but their way of conveying our speech rate, or the context uh, is basically the direct key or the meaning of those words, then this is paralanguage and this is non-verbal communication, because words have been served not as words. Basically the meaning is served through the context or vocalics. So we will explain it a bit more now, the way in which people show that they mean other than by the words they use. So now by the words they use, that is not the prime focus, so that's why this is non-verbal communication. For example, they use their tone, their voice, their sound, their breath. The study of paralanguage deals with the non-verbal qualities. Mean here we are using the words but our focus is not the word. Our focus is on the context and speech. And speech includes our pitch, our amplitude, rate and voice quality. Sometimes it says a lot. Let's have a look at few examples here. Now, in the written form, this is mostly about the conversational, not the written language, but here we are writing something, so I have given you in the written forms. For example, if I'm saying he's very intelligent, if I'm saying he's very intelligent, and if I'm saying he's very intelligent, so now you are not in front of me, so and you can't visualize what I mean, but these sign of punctuations shows the different speech rate. So accordingly, whatever the meaning of this first sentence, the meaning of these second and third sentence is not the same. Same is the case with she is punctual. Now let me tell you a scenario. For example, I'm teaching in the class and a female student, she always comes late in the class. Now this is the context, and in this context, if I'm saying she is punctual or she is always punctual, if even I'm not changing the rate and speech quality of my sound, it means, what does it mean? You tell me. Does it really mean whatever has been written here? Is she really a punctual? No. Here I'm indirectly criticizing her, I'm indirectly chiding her that she is punctual, but actually she is not punctual. So here non-verbal cues are communicating here everything. So here our prime focus are not these words, and the token value of these words is something else, but the real value has been conveyed through the context. So the context and vocalics play the very important role. Why do we use paralanguage? So we are talking about communication and effective communication. So according to the user, sometimes they can use the paralanguage to achieve politeness. Refusing someone is quite difficult. It's not so easy. So if you want to refuse someone politely, even in that case, we can use paralanguage or indirect messages. So if to make our communication more effective and avoiding face-threatening attitudes of the interlocutors, we can use paralanguage. It's up to the user how he is using the paralanguage. So here we can go through the last example. So for example, if your friend is asking you, let's go for a movie, and rather than you are saying, I can't go, I'm not going, it will feel quite harsh. You are saying, I'm rather busy. So I'm rather busy, if you look at the token value of the sentence, it means that you are busy. But here in this context, it is conveying a very polite kind of refusal. So here our paralanguage is working, and the context, let's go for a movie and I'm rather busy, explains about it well. So the paralanguage, that's why, is a non-verbal communication, and it may be quite effective. So today we have studied about proxemics and paralanguage, and in the next lecture we will discuss about few more nonverbal communication and the process of communication. So if you have any queries, you can ask me later on. Thank you very much for today.